The Rules Committee will come to order. We are here for consideration of two very important appropriations bills, H.R. 3962 and H.R. 5973. And we're very happy to welcome the chairman and ranking members of the subcommittees, Mr. Latham, Mr. Olver, Mr. Kingston, Mr. Farr. And so, gentlemen, please come forward. And without objection, any prepared statement that you have will appear in the record in its entirety. But before we proceed with testimony, I'd like to introduce someone who is here as a guest of Ms. Fox, and because her name is K-A-D-E, Cade, I just want to make sure we get that exactly right. She's here with the NYLC program, the leadership program, and so if Ms. Fox wants to brag on you more than I have, Cade, I'm happy to recognize her.
Just a quick comment. I had a chance to talk with Cade before we came over and told her what a treat it was to come to the Rules Committee, and she met Mr. McGovern in the elevator.
And she still felt that way?
She's a very mature young woman, asked excellent questions, and I'm pleased she could be here. Thank you,
Cade. Thank you very much for being with us. Gentlemen, please, Mr. Latham, Mr. Chairman, please proceed. And as I said, without objection, the beautifully prepared statement that you all have there will appear in the record in its entirety, and we would welcome your summary. Let me say, Mr. Kingston, it's nice to see you. Please join us at the table here. It's my hope that this committee will report out, as we have been trying to do as much as possible, open rules for consideration of the appropriations bills. And so with that in mind, that's our plan. And so I think that the brevity of the statement, especially in light of the fact that we're anticipating moving into votes on the House floor pretty quickly, I think that's just reconvening. We will enter your statements in the record, as I said, and welcome your summary. Mr. Latham.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, and thank you for considering the rule on the Transportation, Housing, Urban Development Bill, H.R. 5972. The bill is before the committee today is a balanced proposal to allocate $51.6 billion among federal housing and transportation programs, continuing our commitment to reduce government spending. The bill reflects a budget resolution passed by the House with an allocation is almost $4 billion below 2012 and almost $2 billion below the President's request. Just on a personal note, I'd like to thank Ranking Member Mr. Olver for his cooperation. This will be his last appropriation bill. He's been a great partner and a great friend, and you will be seriously missed. We hope to be ready to go to the floor next week, and would just ask for your assistance in moving forward. Thank you.
Statement. Mr. Olver, for your last statement before the Rules Committee, certainly as it relates to your subcommittee's work, congratulations on your fine effort.
Thank you. And since I believe that this is your last year also.
No, really?
I've read that somewhere.
I hadn't heard that.
And so congratulations.
I've been here a hell of a lot longer than you have, so I'm more deserving.
A bit longer. That is true.
I'm in my fourth decade here, so. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Chairman Dreyer and members of the subcommittee. In the absence of Ranking Member Slaughter, it's a pleasure to testify today with my chairman, Mr. Latham, on the THUD bill. Committee reported bill has some bright spots and some problems spots that are of concern to me. Chairman and I have had many conversations on the bill, some of them very detailed, many of them less detailed, and he has been very inclusive, and I appreciate his consideration along the way. He deserves to be commended for the increases in some of the issues, both in transportation and in housing and urban development. They are needed to address infrastructure deficits. In contrast, I recognize that the holes in the bill are largely because of the allocation that comes out of the Ryan budget, and so in project-based housing, Section 8 program is seriously low. And in the area of transportation, the capital investment grants for FTA programs are particularly low, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to work together when we have a real allocation later on in this process to deal with those issues. Finally, I support the Chairman's request for an open rule for the consideration of this bill, and I would also...
He didn't actually state that, did he? I didn't hear that.
Ask for that to happen.
Okay, well, I mean, I announced that was what I wanted to do, but I mean, I was doing that even though I hadn't heard it.
Well, I know he's made a specific request in his written communication to you, so I'm supporting his request for the open rule, and I would urge you to include a waiver of Clause 2 of Rule 21.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you very, very much for that. Chairman Kingston.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. McGovern, it's great to be with you, the members of this committee. Again, I wish you the best in your future endeavors, and Mr. Over.
Months here, Kingston.
I've just, well, you know what?
Being put out to pasture.
I reached out to you last week and you stiffed me, so we're going to have to take that up on the floor.
That was in Cairo.
Yes, but I tried. I thought I might get ahead of the game, start talking to you. This is a bill that the discretionary spending is $19.4 billion. Unfortunately, it's a mere 14% of the bill. 86% of it is on automatic pilot, so to speak. It's authorizing, and very frustrating to me to have such a large portion, 86% of the bill, that we can't reach and can't move. We can nibble around the edges, but we really can't effectively change that and get into as much oversight as I think we should. The discretionary portion is 1.85% decrease from last year, and as you know, not only does it include agriculture, but the Food and Drug Administration and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and we urge passage.
Thank you very much. Mr. Farr.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member. In absence of Ms. Slaughter, Mr. McGovern, thank you for having us here. I'm here with my colleague on this bill. We appreciate your open rule. And just, people don't really understand USDA because so much of it is just in the Farm Bill fight. But this department is fascinating. It was a department created by Abraham Lincoln to essentially take care of rural America as we did westward expansion, and it still has rural water, rural electricity, rural farm worker housing, and essentially the home ec department for the development of the United States of America. And rural America has been in a depression, and it's essential that this department have the funds necessary to get us out of that depression in rural America. And particularly this department, one of the biggest expenditures in here is the poverty program in America. This is feeding the people the most in need with the WIC program, school lunch program, WIC for these food stamps and so on, and Food for Peace, the McGovern-Dole programs. So the problem with it, and why we need a good debate on the floor, is that it's 8% below what the President requested, and it's below what we enacted last year. It's also way below what the Senate is considering and will enact. So we're going to have a huge debate not only on the floor, but we're going to have a debate in conference. And I think in order to have due diligence on addressing these issues, we need to have an open rule, and I support that. I'd like to submit my comments to the record.
Well, without objection, as I said, all the prepared statements will appear in the record, and I congratulate all of you. We are trying our doggonedest. We had, as you know, a structured rule for consideration of the legislative branch appropriations bill, but that's something that's been done under both Democrats and Republicans traditionally for reasons that we all know. But we've been able to have an open amendment process otherwise, and this is a commitment that I made, that Speaker Boehner made, that we really wanted to do, and so it's great that we can have bipartisan support for this effort, and I appreciate that. And also, dealing with these budget constraints. I mean, it's not easy, and I know that there are many very, very important priorities that that everyone wants to see addressed, but due to the fact that, well, not everyone wants to see addressed, but most people want to see addressed. And I think that, that due to the challenges that we have, we've got to play the hand that's been dealt us. We all know we have a $16 trillion national debt. We're trying to turn the corner on that and get our economy growing. And so I appreciate the understanding that's been showed by members on the Democratic side for the constraints we have. So I have no questions other than to congratulate you and say that we look forward to moving to the floor and having a free-flowing debate. Ms. Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to commend the gentleman for working together on these issues and bringing us these bills. I have concerns that so much of these programs are on autopilot, Mr. Farr, as you do, as the chairman has expressed. And I think we have to address them. As the chairman said, we've got a $16 trillion deficit, and we've got to come to grips with it. And I think we need to get a little bit more backbone in order to do that, cut out some programs that are obviously not the role of the federal government to be funding. But I appreciate your efforts. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. McGovern.
Thank you. I appreciate your being here. Although, even though I'm glad to see you, I wish we were here talking about the extension of the highway bill, or at least taking up the Senate bill, which I think would provide some certainty to governors and mayors all around the country who want to invest in their infrastructure. Or I wish we were debating today the bill to make sure that student loans, the interest rates on Stafford loans don't increase from 3.4% to 6.8%, so that students don't get hit with that bill. But anyway, we're here, and I appreciate the fact that you have very difficult allocations to deal with. They're arbitrary, but the majority in this House voted for those allocations, so that's why we're in this mess. And again, Mr. Kingston, I actually, I appreciate, the challenge that you had on the ag appropriations bill, but it just seems that some of the most devastating cutbacks impact some of the most vulnerable people, not only in our country but around the world. And I don't believe that that's the way we're ultimately going to balance our budget. And so I look forward to a vigorous debate on the House floor. Whether we have an open amendment process or not on this, I mean, there's not much you can do. I mean, the allocations are so low, so in many respects, in order to offer any amendments, you have to rob Peter to pay Paul. So there's not a lot of good alternatives here. So, but I look forward to a good debate, and I thank you all for being here.
I will say that appropriations work is the one constitutionally mandated directive according to Article 1, Section 7 for this institution. And I'm very happy that we're considering 2 appropriations bills with this rule. Mr. Bishop.
Thank you. I'm assuming Paul likes it. Mr. Kingston, I appreciate very much your frustration that you mentioned with the mandatory spending sections in your bill. As Mr. McGovern mentioned, there's a transportation bill out there. I'm on that conference committee. I'm on the conference committee because for some reason the Senate decided to put resource issues on a highway bill. I'm not quite sure how it connects, but they decided to do that. And part of the problem is on the Senate version is they want to take programs that have always been discretionary spending and make them into mandatory spending. So just as we finish off those particular kinds of discussions, I think it's enlightening that you were here to show the frustration that you have as an appropriator with the inability of actually prioritizing funds because we have decided to make things mandatory spending as opposed to giving Congress the ability of making its will and making its decision, and especially making its priorities felt. So I think thank you. That's something good. And fine, if you'd like to expound to that, I'd be happy to hear it.
If the gentleman would, food stamps 2008 was about $39.7 billion. Food stamps in this bill is just under $80 billion. So it has effectively doubled in a 4-year period of time. Now, interestingly, the WIC program has remained relatively stable in that same period of time, and the WIC program is 100% discretionary, and SNAP, or food stamps, is on the mandatory. And we only look at it every 5 years when there's a farm bill, and I don't think a program that large should be ignored by Congress for 5 straight years.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I didn't understand that detail. Thank you.
May I also respond to that?
It's fine with me, yeah.
Look, we're in tough economic times, and in tough economic times, that's when people rely on the resources of government, particularly food. We had highest unemployment in modern history. When people are unemployed, they go to the social services. And so you're bound to get a bounce up in that. And so I think it's not expected that food stamp demands would go up. I'm not against looking at, I think we ought to always look at the formulas and make sure that they're fair and balanced. But I don't think we ought to criticize the fact that people are hungry in America and need to turn to government for assistance.
I thank you for both those clarifications, especially some of the data that's involved in that. Once again, it is instructive for me because in my position I'm not dealing with issues that change at all based on the economy of this country. They're going to be constant in some particular way. And obviously the chance of having the difference between having mandatory spending versus discretionary spending, especially in an area in which it's not going to have any kind of variance depending on the economic condition of this country. It's important that Congress, and I know when I was in the state legislature we had the same issue, we always tried to make sure that we allowed the legislature the greatest flexibility to meet the needs of the time. Congress should be doing that. The effort to go against it, I think, is instructive. Anyway, I appreciate you, both committees, for the efforts that you've done bringing these bills forward. I have lots of other questions to have on details, but no one really cares, and we're about ready to vote, so I'll yield back.
Never been said any better. Let me just say, Mr. Price is here, and gentlemen, if we're in the midst of questioning, but we're getting ready to go to the vote on the House floor. I know your issue that you have of concern. If you'd like to offer some comments, Mr. Price, we'd welcome them, and just you can just pull your chair up right there, and.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. Very straightforward. This has to do with an amendment that I offered in the markup earlier this week to the Transportation and Infrastructure, to the Transportation HUD appropriations bill. It was accepted graciously by the leadership, by both sides of the Appropriations Committee, and yet I understand issues have been raised by the chairman of the Authorizing Committee. So let me just very quickly tell you what it's about and make the case for including this. The provision in question would reallocate funds that are languishing at DOT. Many of you will remember the old maglev program, which never quite panned out as predicted. These were funds that were included in Safety Lou years ago. $90 million set aside for maglev. All four of the prospective projects are now defunct, and that money's sitting there. So my idea was to take this money and to apply it to a pressing national safety need. That is the upgrading of highway rail crossings across the country. And this was accepted, as I said, by both sides during the markup. It would simply reallocate those unobligated funds to existing highway programs and rail programs that provide the program that provides grants to eliminate hazards at highway rail grade crossings. I'll submit for the record a fuller account of what this amendment does, but I think given the broad support, given the absolute need for this funds, and also the fact that the funds are sitting there not being used for any other productive purpose, makes this an unusually compelling case, and I would appreciate the amendment being protected on the floor.
Thank you very much. Let me just say, as you know, I mean, I'm certainly sympathetic with what it is that you're trying to do, and what I would encourage is to try and work with the authorizing chairman. One of the things is you talk about the process at the appropriations level, but as you know, we have an entire institution, and we try our doggonedest to make sure that when the Appropriations Committee is proceeding with its work, that there is done in concurrence with authorizers. We know there are more than a few measures that have not been reauthorized, and for that reason, it's essential that they be included in the appropriations process. And so I would just encourage you to try and work, with the chairman of the.
Well, we're doing that, and we will do that.
Right.
As you know, the way Safety Lou works,
yes.
This is a kind of a hybrid category
Absolutely.
of funds, and so the case is pretty strong for reallocating it.
We appreciate your thoughts on that.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure, absolutely.
May I make a comment on
Sure,
this?
absolutely.
I think one of the reasons, the most compelling reason for this is, for accepting this on both sides, was that it is seriously a safety problem We have had,
It is.
in the last year, in 2011 alone, we have had some 240 or thereabouts accidents, grade crossing
crossing.
accidents that have resulted in several hundred fatalities, 400-plus fatalities. Fatalities have occurred in the districts of 6 of the members who are here on the committee.
Well, I had a major one. I had a major one in my district, actually, in
And
Glendale,
so it's
California.
a very compelling usage, especially since
is.
the funds have been languishing there.
It is,
for
and that's
several
why I
years.
hope very much that we're going to be able to bring about a resolution to ensure that those resources that can go into those safety needs will be able to be met.
Thank you.
Mr. Hastings.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield very briefly to Mr. McGovern.
Well, I thank the gentleman for yielding. Just a couple of things, Mr. Price, I agree with you. I think this is an important thing. I hope we can protect it in the rule. Second thing, I just want to say one thing about food stamps or SNAP. I mean, that is a program that does change depending on our economic situation. So when more people go back to work, the amount that we spend on SNAP goes down. It's countercyclical. And so that is a program that does, in fact, go up or down depending on the economic condition in this country. And I would also say that it is, there is oversight, not only in the Agriculture Committee. I would say that they are not doing a very good job of oversight because they voted to cut $32 billion out of it without even a hearing. But the General Accountability Office said is one of the most efficiently run programs in our government, less than a 3% error rate. I'd like to see a Department of Defense program with that kind of efficiency rating. You don't have it. And the final thing I'd simply say is on the, again, we could lower the amount of people on SNAP if we actually passed a highway bill and put more people back to work. And I appreciate Mr. Bishop's frustration that a resource issue has been brought into the transportation bill. But I mean, a lot of us are wondering what the hell Keystone Pipeline has anything to do with the transportation bill. I hope that we can all get together and sooner rather than later pass that and put people back to work. But just want to make sure people understand the way that SNAP works. I appreciate the gentleman yielding.
Thank you. And, Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent that the Statement of Administration Policy dated June 21, 2012 be admitted in the record.
Without objection.
And I'd like to lift just one paragraph and nothing further than that, Mr. Chairman. Taking this into account, it says, passing H.R. 5972 at its current funding level would mean that when the Congress constructs other appropriations bill, it would necessitate significant and harmful cuts to critical national priorities such as education, research and development, job training, and health care. Furthermore, the bill undermines key investments in economic and community development programs that drive local innovations while also weakening the safety net for Americans facing significant hardship in these challenging economic times. The administration also strongly objects to the inclusion of ideological and political provisions that are beyond the scope of funding legislation, and if the President were presented with H.R. 5972, his senior advisors would recommend that he veto the bill. I yield back my time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. Ms. Polis. Mr. Scott. Mr. Webster.
I had one thing. I think the Keystone could be a transportation project. I think we ought to run a limited access trucking highway north to south and connect up with all our east to west interstates. I believe it is a transportation issue.
Creative idea. Gentlemen, thank you all very, very much. That will conclude the hearing, and we can distribute the rule. Oh, we are. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought that
we don't have clearance yet, so we have to come back during the week.
Is the vote on right now?
Yeah, it just started.
Okay. Let me just say to the members of the Rules Committee that we have one little provision that is remaining, so I think what we're going to do is reconvene during the motion to recommit debate, which will be after this series of amendments. We'll have, basically 20 minutes there between the 10 minutes of debate and then there 25 minutes. So we'll stand in recess and reconvene at the beginning of the debate on the motion to recommit. Thank you all. doing?
I made it.
When are you going to New York? Here we go.
Tomorrow.
The committee will reconvene. We're here for further consideration of the two appropriations bills, H.R. 5972 and H.R. 5973. The chair will be in receipt of a motion from the gentleman from Dallas.
Mr. Chairman, I move the committee grant H.R. 5973, the Agricultural, Rural Development, Food, and Drug Administration-related Agencies Appropriation Act 2013, an open rule. Rule provides 1 hour of general debate on the bill, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations. Rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. Rule waives points of order against provisions in the bill for failure to comply with Clause 2 of Rule 21. Rule provides that the bill shall be considered for amendment under the 5-minute rule. The rule authorizes the chair to accord priority and recognition to members who have pre-printed their amendments in the congressional record. The rule provides one motion to recommit with or without instructions. The rule further provides for the consideration of H.R. 5972, the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development and Related Agencies Appropriation Act 2013 under an open rule. The rule provides 1 hour general debate on the bill, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Appropriations. Rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. Rule waives points of order against provisions of the bill for failure to comply with Clause 2 of Rule 21, except for Section 169C. Rule provides that the amendment specified in Section 3 of the resolution inserting the caption for the spending reductions account shall be considered as adopted. Rule provides that the bill shall be considered for amendment under the 5-minute rule. Rule authorizes the chair to accord priority and recognition to members who have pre-printed their amendments in the congressional record. Rule provides one motion to recommit with or without instructions. Finally, rule provides for consideration of concurrent resolutions provided for adjournment during the month of July.
You've heard the motion of the gentleman from Dallas. Let me just explain briefly. As we said, we have two appropriations bills, both of which will be considered under an open amendment process, which is a commitment that we've made, and we're trying our doggonedest to keep it, and so far so good. The last provision that Mr. Sessions mentioned is just the adjournment, allowing us to, having not completed all of the appropriations work by the end of the fiscal year, or the June 30th date, that we will still be able to adjourn as an institution. And the issue that came forward from Mr. Price has been dealt with to Mr. Price's liking, and I know there was a request made on that, and in consultations with the Transportation Authorization Committee, we were able to deal with that to ensure that we could address that question. Any amendments to the rule? Mr. McGovern.
I don't have an amendment, Mr. Chairman. I just want the record to reflect that our ranking member, Mrs. Slaughter, is not here because she's on the floor handling the motion to recommit.
Thank you very much for that. Vote occurs on the motion of the gentleman from Dallas. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Pay the chair. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is agreed to. And Ms. Fox will be managing for the majority.
I will be managing.
And Mr. McGovern for the minority. And let me just say that we have no meetings scheduled for next week, but because we surely should, this will provide lots of action for us next week on the floor. But if there are, we will let everyone know. And I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend.
Mr. Chairman, do we have any intelligence on either the highway bill or on the bill that would prevent interest rates for student loans going up?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that. We obviously those are issues that we want to have addressed. We've dealt with them, and as I said, Mr. Micah is working on this transportation bill right now, and so
and as you know, on the student loans, that if we don't get
yes,
that
no, I understand.
by July, students will see their
very well aware of that. Very well aware of that, and that's a priority. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and thank you very much. Without objection, the committee stands adjourned.